Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Erica, and once again I am working on the Reddit fantasy bingo for the year. This is a bingo that the fantasy sub on Reddit runs, and it sort of runs from a weird time frame. It goes from April 1st until March 31st of the next year. And so it's not a full normal calendar year, I guess I should say. They do it a little bit off. I'll be honest, I don't know why, but it's fine. We just go with it. So I am currently working my way through the 2024 list for bingo because my deadline is March 31st. I've still got books to read. So this video, I'm going to be reading through 4 different books for Reddit Fantasy Bingo. I'm going to read through the Harp of Kings, the City of Stardust, 5 Broken Blades, and also, what's the last one? The Atlas 6. Geez, I just finished the Atlas 6, which at the end of this video, you're going to see me back here, and I'm going to talk about that. Anyway, it was a lot of reading. It was a whirlwind of reading these books, and I got a lot of my, I wanted to do my thoughts along the way when things were still fresh in my mind from just having finished the books. So that's what you're about to see in this video. Is I'm going to talk about the books that I read, shortly after I finished them, and then at the end I'm gonna kind of do just a little update on where I am in general for my Reddit fantasy bingo reading, because as I said, the deadline is imminent and I still have pending books to get in to fill my bingo card before it gets here. I am going to let past Erica take over now as she talks about reading these books, and then I'll be right back here at the end with my discussion of the Atlas 6, and then we'll do the wrap up where we'll talk about where am I at? What am I going to read next? I just finished the Harp of Kings. This fills my my Bard square for Reddit bingo, and I am really pleasantly surprised for how much I enjoyed this book. And this is going to end up filling the hard mode criteria for the square too, because 2 of the main characters are explicitly referred to as bards, so that's gonna work out pretty well because I'm trying to do all hard mode if at all possible. So I really wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about this book because the first 30% was a little bit, felt like a little bit unnecessarily slow. I wasn't entirely sure where we were going to end up going with this one, but man, right shortly after that 30% mark, everything took off and it became really interesting, and I was fully engaged from that point. In this one we have 3 main characters that we're switching perspectives throughout the book. 2 of the main characters, it's Brock and Levon. They're brother and sister. They are bards but also warriors, hence the name of the series is Warrior Bards. And then the 3rd main character, Dow, is just a warrior. He's not into singing, dancing, anything musical. He's okay to, he enjoys listening to others, but he doesn't really want any part of that for himself. The 3 main characters, they're trying to become members of this group of, I would kind of describe as mercenaries, but they're basically a group that gets sent on what seems like it's going to typically be secret missions in order to assist people or countries or whoever with whatever they want assistance with in kind of like a clandestine kind of way. So we start out watching these 3 characters at this training center for this group where they're trying to become members, and they're all in training. At the end of the training period, the leadership is going to decide who gets to actually become a member, who is a reject. So the 3 main characters get chosen to go on a mission as sort of like a test run for how they would do in real life. Well, I use quotes because I mean this is real life, but it's a test mission. They're going to have a lot of supervision while they do it. The mission is to see if they can find and retrieve the Harp of Kings. This harp is incredibly important to a local kingdom that needs apparently it must be played anytime there is a new king, coronation. It's very important to the ceremony, and if it is not played, apparently all hell is gonna break loose among the citizens of this country. So like, it has to be played because there's an impending coronation of a new king for this country, and they've got to find this harp. They don't know what happened to it. Obviously they believe it was stolen, and they have no clue where it went to or why or anything. So the group that our three main characters are in, they've been hired on to locate this harp, bring it back in time for the coronation so it can be played. So the story is following them as they go on this mission to the kingdom. They all have secret identities that they're given. So Levon and Brock are given the identities of traveling musicians that have come into town as part of like all the people coming in for the celebrations for the new king to be, new king to be crowned. And then Dao is given a secret identity of being like a stable hand, and he's mute, and his role is going to be primarily to sort of blend in and observe and see what he can overhear and learn, whether he can learn anything useful about where the harp might have gone. So we follow them, they show up, they're playing their roles, and then things kind of go off the rails, and we're introduced to, there's Fae that are part of the story that we get introduced to. There's a druid sect that is sort of, they're not really part of the government of this kingdom, but it seems like they do a lot of guidance for the government's leadership, like it's an important part of the kingdom's culture. So we get to see some of their stories and beliefs that becomes kind of important to the plot line later on. I don't know that I would describe this as a true Portal fantasy, but it definitely felt like maybe some of the characters ended up in another realm, right? As they're going along, trying to investigate and figure out where this harp is. Overall, this was a really excellent story, and it's a trilogy. I'm very interested to read the next two books. If there's one thing I could say that I did not love, it's that so we're changing perspectives throughout the story, which I think the author did a fine job at the narration in that way. Not every author can switch perspectives in a useful way, but we got to see different events unfold right through different characters' eyes. But the voices for each character weren't that distinct. The way that I knew which person we were following was, not only was the chapter heading, like it clearly told you which character we were going to be following, but it was the things they would talk about made it obvious which character it was, but the actual character voice wasn't that distinct. But it wasn't a deal breaker for me. It was just something that I noticed throughout the course of the book. But I will say, so the narration in this through the whole book was first person present, and normally I do not like that as a narration style. I really don't care for first person, but she did it so well. And though just her style of writing with the way that she was able to bring you into the character's current actions started to feel almost like D&D or something like that. Like I could put myself in the role of the character with what was happening at the moment, and it was really immersive in that way, which was extremely impressive, and it was why I really liked the narration so much in this book. I thought she chose a great option for that first person present, because she had the skill to really bring you into the character's shoes, let you go along to know what they're seeing and thinking and hearing in the moment as it's unfolding for the character itself, which I thought was awesome. It was really easy to lose yourself in the story and the character that way. Overall, I'm definitely going to continue the series, because while we wrapped up the story in this one, we absolutely left on a cliffhanger. as far as what's going to happen with the characters going forward, and I need to know. I'm not sure if we're going to end up going back to the kingdom when the book picks up, or if we're going to end up being like in the training facility or going on some other kind of mission. I'm not entirely sure, because there were plot points that did get wrapped up in some way, but also all these new critical things happened like right at the end of the book. I'm so curious if we're going to revisit, because there's characters and places that we were in this first book that I am interested to know more, and I want to see these characters again, these places again, and find out what's happening with them after the events of this book. So overall, it was really enjoyable. And what I also really appreciated, because there are fae or like fairies in this book, it was not like the cliche sexy fae doing like growling and weird shit that is so often, I think, in the last like 10 years of fantasy whenever fairies show up. I don't know how they've gotten morphed into what they currently are in books, but I'm not really into it. I just want some kind of mischievous fae, and this was the fairies and the fae in this. It was they were mischievous and playful, and it wasn't just like, I don't know, excuses to be like weirdly animalistic and sexy as you write your fae. I don't know, but I really liked this, and I will absolutely continue the series. So I'm glad that I saw this as a recommendation for this square, because I don't know that it's necessarily one that I would have picked up otherwise. But it ended up being something that I really enjoyed. I would say my feelings right now, fresh off of reading it, probably 4 stars. I felt pretty good about it. But I will evaluate my feelings. My feelings sometimes change, but that's my impression right now as I just finished it. So that's my thoughts on the Harp of Kings. I don't know, hopefully I will get to read, because I know there's 2 more books. I'm gonna be trying to read them relatively soon while this first one is still fresh in my mind. But next I am going to be moving on to, I've already started the City of Stardust, so I'm going to be continuing that, and I expect that my thoughts on that book will probably be the next update. Okay, so I finished the City of Stardust last night, and I have to say I've got mixed emotions about this book. Like, I don't know how I feel. I don't even know. I stayed up way too late to finish it, because I was actually like, I need to know how this is all gonna turn out, but yet so much of this book didn't make sense. I'm like, I think I really kind of was into this book, but I don't really know why. I feel like I shouldn't have been, but here we are. So what was it about? Frankly, there was almost too much going on in this book. What is this book? How many pages is this? This is like 336 pages or so. Okay, so I mean, not a tiny book, but not like a massive, it's not a Sanderson size. It's just a book, right? There was so much going on in there, crammed in to that 336 pages. It just kept piling more and more. I don't know. Things kind of got off the rails. Maybe like 100 pages in, we took a right turn. We just kept going, or a left turn. I guess that would make more sense. We went off the tracks. Basically every metaphor you can think of for things going like kind of ridiculous, we did. What is this book about? That's a good question. So it's a portal fantasy. Our main character, I don't know, I first thought that she was quite young, but then I guess she aged up more than I thought. I guess for most of the book she was in her early 20s. I guess. I have to say the book felt very YA, even though I think it's marketed as adult fantasy. It definitely had a YA feel to it. Like it was a YA book, but they just like aged up the main character a few years so that some of the events, like the things that she does, will be less weird. We follow our main character who like 10 years before the book starts, her mom has just like left. Just one day was just like, not even peace, I'm out, because she didn't even say that. She just like left. And so our main character has been in the care of her two uncles for all of this time, living in this old family house that they have. And like, she's been kept in seclusion, like isolated a lot. And I don't know, she didn't seem to question this that much, but whatever. She finally gets a job one day, so she's working at this like little cafe. She meets someone that she had very briefly met who came to the house many years ago. She's very intrigued by this person because this guy can do magic, and she's like, OMG, you can do magic. So they get to talking, and what is happening is that from every generation, not unlike the Buffy the Vampire Slayer lore, but whatever. In every generation in this girl's family, this woman named Penelope just like takes one person in her family, just like takes them. And her family just like lets this happen for like ever. And so next up is our main character. Now our main character was so like, I don't know, naive would be a kind way to describe her. She was very naive, and she had no idea any of this was going on or these were the stakes. Now this woman Penelope was supposed to take the main character's mother, but we remember the mother just like went to the store for a pack of cigarettes and a gallon of milk and just like never came back. So Penelope is like, all right, well, I didn't get her, so now it's time for me to get like the daughter, the main character. But I'm gonna give you 10 years where I'm not gonna take you because I'm a generous person. So she does. When there's like 1 year left, our main character, who I believe her name is Vi. See, I read this whole book and I read it so fast and I'm blanking on her name, even though that's one of the things I gotta say. The author had a tendency to use this character's full name a lot. And if you think in your day-to-day life, how often are people calling you by your full legal name? Is that common? I feel like that's not very common for most of us. Yet for this main character, whose name is Violet Everly, everyone was saying, oh, Violet Everly. Oh, it's Violet Everly. Like, it's just very weird how often people said our main character's full name. It's weird. That's all I'm saying, is that it's a little bit weird, but honestly, not even the wildest thing or weirdest thing, most unusual choice in this book, so I won't harp on that anymore. So with 1 year left of this 10-year deal, to give Violet more time to not be like taken by Penelope, Violet decides she's gonna go find her mother. So she ventures out into the magical community, which is on Earth, but also partially through a portal in another like reality. Not another reality. Yeah, I guess another I don't know, another realm. Violet goes out into the world to try to find her mother. She somehow makes contact with all of these other people who are within the same magical community as her family, even though she spent the entirety of her life isolated and didn't know that any of this even existed. Suddenly our main character is like this world traveler who is able to integrate herself and do like spy shit into the magical community to try to find her mother. How? She has left just suddenly in like the middle of the night, I think. She just took off after like fighting with her uncles. And the uncles this whole time want to know where she is. They're like sending her messages that she's not responding to, but they never check her bank account, I guess. She's using the family money, but they're not just being like, oh, let's call Bank of America and tell them to like alert us when transactions come through this account so we know where they are and like we can go to her and find her, because we have the ability to like, I don't know, almost teleport places. Over the course of the year, neither of the uncles thinks of this. Okay, I guess. Whatever, don't question it. So she's going all over the world, doing spy stuff, trying to find her mom, meeting like beings and stuff that she never had any idea existed. And then we get to the end, which I'm not gonna spoil, but there was so much convoluted, that was like circular logic, right? That like didn't really make sense if you're thinking about it, like time travel paradox, not even quite time travel paradox type stuff, but like almost. There were paradoxical things were happening in the timeline. I don't know. I don't know. You can't sit and think about this book too much, because like there's things that logically make no sense in this story. They just don't. And you just have to kind of accept that. But let me tell you, I did kind of accept that, and I was kind of really into this book. I wouldn't think so, because like inconsistencies, plot holes, various things like that, they can often like pick at me, the back of my mind, as I'm reading, and I'm like, well, but that doesn't make sense, but that doesn't make sense. Because as I'm reading or watching a show or a movie or whatever, I need things to make sense, at least within the world that's been created. I need it to make sense. And if it is logically consistent within itself, then I can buy in and I can have a great time. But it needs to make sense in the context in which we're viewing the story. This did not. And normally that would deeply bother me, and I'd be like, frankly, that's a deal breaker for me. But it wasn't, and I don't know why, and I kept going with this book, and I was really into it. I'm confused by a lot of what happened. A lot of it, like I said, was circular logic, didn't really make sense, because you can't think about it too much, because then it really all falls apart. But I'm into it, and I kind of wish that she would make a sequel, because there were like these almost like godlike beings in this book that I'm deeply intrigued to know more about. I would love a book about these beings that she that like had a role in her story. Very interested to know more. I don't really care about the main character that much. She was kind of like lacking personality. I will say too, okay, so she was very dumb. This character was, oh man, I don't want to go so far as to be like she was too dumb to live, but like she was dumb. So she's going along she's doing like her secret spy plans, right, to try to find her mom, and she's confiding in the same person, and her plans keep getting found out by Penelope, the person that she's like trying to work against. And our main character keeps being like, I wonder how I keep getting betrayed. That's so weird. That like I keep getting like found out or foiled or whatever. I have no idea what's going on. Like, ma'am, you have talked to one person about what you're doing and what your plans are, and you don't know? You have no idea how your enemy could have found out? and this happened multiple times, and you still have no idea. You still have no idea. No, why? No. So the main character, I liked this book in spite of her. Like, I wasn't rooting against her, but I was just kind of like, come on now, you need to get out of your own way, because you are your biggest problem at this point. I don't even know what to say. This is I feel like I'm all over the place. It is very early in the morning. You can't tell with my lighting, but like, I was up very late last night to finish this book. It is very early in the morning before I work right now, and these are my uncaffeinated thoughts as I fell asleep thinking this book over. I'm very conflicted in how I feel, because can I recommend it? I mean, it wasn't bad. The writing was fine, which, you know what, A plus to this author, especially because I think it was her debut novel. So like, right on that she could write a book as a debut and have it, like, all of these, she had really good concepts, I think, in what she was trying to do. I think it was just too much in too few pages for what she was trying to do. The long-standing family curse that she really should have had more time to explore. The portals to, like, other realm type stuff that would have been super interesting to explore more. Past events that were, like, way in the past that were very relevant to what was going on now with our main character would have been really interesting to have more time. The beings, like the godlike beings, would have been so interesting to have more of them and their stories in this book. And it was just like, plus that, aside from all of that, we had this like spy world traveling caper kind of thing going on. I feel like it was just too much in too few pages. If she'd had more space, like had a little room to breathe with the narrative, I think it probably would have been better. I think she probably could have made it make more sense along the way. But I mean, it wasn't a bad book. It's a book that I'm surprised that I have positive feelings about, because there were so many things in it that would normally, like, push me away, but it didn't. If you're looking for a portal fantasy and you're okay with some disjointed storytelling, but you kind of want to read about like centuries old family curse and some godlike beings that are wild, and man, there was some gruesome violence in this, so I'll give her credit for that too. It was unexpected, and she went all in for it, so like, good for her. She didn't shy away from some violent scenes in this book. I don't know, if you're open to that, then I guess give this one a try. You don't mind you know, stepping around a few plot holes here and there, then pick it up, because the writing style, I think she did a perfectly fine job. The writing was serviceable, not annoying. That's one of the first things I look for when I'm picking up a book. Like, does this writing annoy me? And her writing did not annoy me. So like, A plus to the author on that. I would be open to reading more by this author, and I saw she has a book coming out next year. I don't know what it's about. I have to admit that. I didn't even look. I just saw that she has a book coming out. I would be open to reading more, because maybe it's just a matter of like I said, this was debut novel, so maybe just getting some of like the kinks worked out. Totally possible. Those are my much like the plot, my disjointed thoughts on this book. Those are my thoughts. I'm not entirely sure what book I'm gonna read next for my bingo. Give me just a minute and I'm gonna take a look. Okay, so I just looked, and I think the next book I'm gonna read for bingo is gonna be the Atlas 6. Don't hold me to it, but I think so. So probably the next time you'll see me, or it's either gonna be Daughters of Izdahar, or the Atlas 6. I'll be back with my thoughts on one of those books. I know I said I was going to be back probably reading Atlas 6 or Daughters of Izdahar, but I decided to read Five Broken Blades because my edition right now, I have it in a cover. So here's the real cover of this book. So I decided to read this now. It's going to attempt to fill my Romantasy square in bingo because the edition that I have, this lovely purple, I know there was like a million different editions of this book. I got mine from the Broken Binding, and they're doing a special edition of the sequel. It's coming out in January, and so I decided to bump up my time frame to read Five Broken Blades to see if I want to order the sequel or not. Where am I at right now? Not that far. I am on page 67. I believe there's about 430 pages. Yeah, about 430 pages in this book. So, what is this book about so far? Why am I holding this up as though you can see it? It's a book cover. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, what is this book about? So far, it's about several different people who are all being tasked with assassinating a king, and the people are all mostly separate at this point, although some of them are overlapping or seem like they're going to overlap, or maybe they have overlapped but they don't know yet. I don't know. Anyway, there's some overlapping. We don't know why at this point, well, at least for most of them, but they're all being tasked with this assassination. So we're just following along as the multiple main characters. I think we're up to 5 so far, 5 different, because each chapter is from a different point of view for a different character. I think we've had 5 different people so far, and everybody is being assigned to kill this king. What do I think so far? Well, you can't see because I very intelligently decided to use purple. It would help if I showed the right side of the book. So I'm tabbing this book, and can you see? You can kind of see the purple tabs there, I think. Stop looking at me, camera. Stop looking at me. You can see now, I think, the purple tabs, right? I've been tabbing since... Did I tab on page 1? Oh, did we not even make it 1 page before I needed a tab? I'm checking. I did indeed tab page 1. In fact, I tabbed the first line. What are my tabs for? So, I like the plot. I find this plot, I mean, it's a group of people who are all separately being tasked with assassinating this king, and it's a little mysterious as to why, and okay, whatever. Why am I tabbing? Well, the writing is... as I'm reading this, I read the first chapter in the gravelly voice of Batman because the narration or like the writing style very much felt kind of like let me read the first line, the one that I tabbed, and I think you're gonna understand maybe better why. Okay, this is the first line, and I'm gonna use the gravelly Batman voice, okay? Gold for blood, that's my advertisement and the words I live by. So that was one line, and basically that was how the whole first chapter went. And I have tabbed some other delights. Here we go. Here's one. This one I did not read in the gravelly Batman voice, but it was still a good example of the kind of writing that we're getting in this one. I was once a prized hunter, the best in Yusan, according to the king, and now here I am, in the Badlands, in fallow, and I am the prey. Okay, alright. And let's just pick... Oh, here was a good one. So now we're getting the first female point of view. The green grass is lovely and soft, and yet, at the same time, hard and sharp, like me. What? Okay. All right. Okay, so that's the kind of writing that I'm dealing with. And about page, was it like 50, we get to a character who like can't keep it in her pants. Like, she meets one of the other characters that we're following. She meets him for the first time. She's never met this man before. She is apparently 24 years old. And literally the moment that she shakes his hand to like meet him for the first time, she starts thinking to herself about how she wants to sleep with him. Okay. Oh, and oh God, one of the worst offenders for the lines, I'm sorry, that I have maybe ever read. I cringed so much, and I cannot let this go. I must share it in this video. Let me find it, because here we go. We all must experience this, okay? Our hands fit together like a lock and a key, but it's more than that. He feels like home. Literally, she met this man just now. Just now. She has never met this man. Like, she has seen him before. She knows, like, of him. She's never met this man. Ever. Until now. She's 24. Okay. I'm gonna be continuing this book. Now look, my complaints... I am gonna continue. I don't know yet how to feel about this, because these are complaints, because the writing, I'm like, what are we doing with this writing? But I'm not having a bad time, because in my mind, I'm reading this as sort of being like, I don't know, not satire, but a little bit unserious, but I feel like the author wants me to take this seriously. But I'm having a hard time doing that. So if I continue reading it as I am, where I'm like, are we all for real right now? We're all doing this like tongue-in-cheek, right? Then I'm having a good time. That's how I'm going to approach it for now, because if I try to take this seriously, I'm not going to be able to, and it's just going to make me mad, and I'm going to DNF this book, and then I'm going to have to find another book to fit on this bingo square, and I do not have time for that. So I'm going to persevere. It's actually going really fast to read. You know, it's not, the chapters are short. The writing, there's not a lot, there's not a lot of writing on each page. So it's actually going quite fast, which is nice, because I mean, if I have to read a book that maybe I'm unsure about, I prefer it go kind of fast. But I'm determined to finish this. So I don't know when I'll be back with an update. I guess we'll see what develops. I finished 5 Broken Blades this morning, and I have to admit, so I've been going about my business today. I'm getting ready to go to a show, and I've been thinking to myself, because I know I needed to film this with an update, right, for this book. I've been thinking to myself, is this gonna be a mea culpa, considering my update from when I was like, what was I was like 60 pages in, I think, to this. And my criticisms, you know what, my prior criticisms, I stand by them. The writing in this book, it didn't change. It didn't change throughout the book. What did change, though, was my feelings about it. It became so over the top, like absurd, some of the writing and how the characters were portrayed, that I just like leaned into it, because I felt like the author's leaning into it, and so you know what, I'm just gonna lean into it too. I'm just going to accept that this is what it is. And you know what, as soon as I did, I was like really into this book. So I don't know, I still don't know if the author intends this to be like amusing, but I found it very tongue-in-cheek, like very amusing to read through. It was just so excessively dramatic that it was funny, and I felt myself like I was guffawing at parts of this book as I was reading, because I'm like, this is so ridiculous. And I'm into it. I am into how ridiculous this is right now. What is this book about? I can answer this question in a better way now because I finished it. So we get 6 different points of view throughout this book. So the 6 main characters, they're divided into pairs of 2. So it makes it very simple. And it's not a spoiler to say that like each pair has some either romantic involvement or romantic feelings or something romantic going on there, because it's like immediate from the get-go. So this is not a spoiler. The characters have either been romantically involved in the past, or they want to be romantically involved going forward, or they're just like really wanting to hook up, but like, oh, I don't have feelings, but like, oh, I kind of do. Anyway, it's very obvious pairing off from the beginning in this book romantically. And we follow these 6 characters. They've all been tasked, initially separately, with going on like with a mission to assassinate the current king. And I don't know, I'll be honest. I mean, the reasons for each character, do we even know all the reasons everybody's participating in this? You know what, I feel like we got some reasons for some of the characters, but like they were kind of weak. But frankly, at that point, I didn't even care. I was like, you know what? The king seems like a jerk, and this is just a classic like teaming up for to pull off a mission story. So I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm just going to accept that these characters are all into the idea of assassinating the king. Now, like I said, a few of them I feel like we got solid reasons for their willingness to participate in this plot. But a few of them I was like, I don't know, kind of weak rationale for like treason. So, but whatever. Don't overthink it, because I stopped overthinking it at probably like the 100-page, maybe 150-page mark. And that's when I started just really enjoying the story. So they end up separately getting involved in this plot to do the assassination, but then like all of the groups come together in a way to participate in this plot. The plan itself for the assassination, kind of weak. I would not, if I was planning it, I would have chose something different, but you know what? Stopped overthinking it, so it didn't even matter. And so we just watched them because they had to like journey to the city where the king was going to be to actually pull off this plot. So most of the book, we're watching them on this journey to actually get to where the king is going to be. They, have interpersonal conflicts, a lot of drama. There's some mysterious enemies that they have to fight along the way. They all suspect each other of betraying the group all of the time. When I was reading this, I just imagined all of the characters throughout the book just having like shifty eyes, like, either because they're being shifty or they think other people are, suspicious. So they're just like suspecting everyone all the time. The writing, the characters, the way they felt about each other. Look, I feel these characters are supposed to be grown adults. They did not read that way. But again, I just accepted it. And once I accepted that it is what it is, then I had a great time. So this is definitely YA fantasy. But honestly, the writing, this is one of the only YA fantasies in the last few years that I've just been able to be like, you know what? I'm gonna roll with what this writing is like. Just the ridiculous, like there was so much of the characters being like, but I'm not into this person, but I am, but I'm not, but like maybe. Or I think about this person like all of the time, and like I don't know, the inner monologue was just like it was like what I remember as like when I was 16. Yes. So that's why I'm like, if you are a young adult and you want a young adult fantasy, honestly, this I think you might really enjoy. Or if you're not a young adult but you just want a young adult fantasy, you might really enjoy this. But again, it's over the top with with the drama between the characters and the way that they're written, like their interactions are written, their thoughts are written. It's not something I having finished this now, so I know I think I said in my first update that I think the author wants this to be serious. I'm not so sure now that I've finished it, because I don't it's like like a telenovela is like super dramatic and ridiculous. That was this. But like a telenovela is supposed to be super dramatic to the point of being ridiculous, right? Like that's why they're so popular, right? And the writers know what they're doing. They know what people want. They know it's supposed to be absurd. And they provide it to the audience. This was the book equivalent of a telenovela. And I had a great time. I'm not going to buy the sequel, but I do plan to read it. So I already put it on my wish list at my local library, because I do plan to read it when it comes out. I think it's coming out very shortly, actually, if it's not already. So yeah, I will read the sequel. I think it's, what is it, for something realms. Let me see. What is it? 4 ruined realms. Okay, I was close. And you know what? I'm gonna read it, because this book, the ending was absolutely not intended to be an ending. And I don't know how I feel about that part of it. I mean, I assumed this was going to be a series anyway, even though I knew it was a series. Like, when it came out, when it was first announced, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be like a series. But man, there is like no part of this first book that I feel stands alone, knowing what the ending is. And maybe that will be okay. I mean, we'll see what she does in the second book. We'll see, because sometimes that's fine. That's fine for a series, but not every author can make that transition to where like you just need to view the series, or multiple books in the series as like part 1 and 2 of the same book. So we'll see. But I am gonna read it and I'm gonna find out. So I finally finished that. My Romantasy bingo square is filled. I am done. And you know what? I got a really good excuse to read this book, and I'm glad that I did. I am glad that I did. When I started reading this and I saw what was going on with that writing, I did not think I would finish it and be like, you know what? I had a pretty good time. But you know what? I had a pretty good time. And so I filled my Romantasy bingo square, so I can move on to the next square. It's my next square. Let's take a look. I know what the next book is, but I don't remember what square it's gonna fill. Let's take a look. My next book is gonna be The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, and it's gonna fill the multi-point of view square, and I think it's also gonna fulfill hard mode for that bingo square. Hard mode is more than 5 characters' point of view, which, now that I think about it, I could have also used 5 broken blades for that, because we got 6 points of view. Anyway, so yes, I'm going to be reading this one for that square, and I will be back with an update on the Atlas 6. And finally, I finished The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. And this is a disclaimer before we get started that I'm gonna say some things about this book that are probably not gonna be very nice, and I know that people really love this book, So please don't take it personally that I am going to say some things where it's clear I did not love this book. It's not a judgment on the people who did, because we all like different things, and that's totally okay. But yeah, if you really loved this book and you don't want to hear someone talking about the things they did not love about this book, you should probably just skip ahead to my wrap up where I talk about like where I'm currently at with my bingo. Maybe it goes without saying, wildly popular. It's at least a trilogy, right? I know that there's 3 books out. I don't know if she's planning to write more. So this book has been on my radar, right, since it blew up and like everyone and their brother heard about it, and it's been on my list to read. So I read it for the multi-point of view square for my Reddit bingo, because we follow 6 characters in this book, and the plot itself I found very interesting. It's the kind of plot that I like. We have 6 characters who are all very powerful magic users. They all have a different type of magic that's their specialty. So they've all been chosen by the secret society to compete for 5 available spots to get into the society. And it's like very mysterious and prestigious and things, I guess. So I like that kind of thing. I love a secret society. I love some dark academia stuff. And so that part of the story, that was what made me interested to read this book. And I have to say, I wish that had been more fleshed out, because this book takes place like at essentially a giant, mysterious, magical, powerful library, but we don't really feel that throughout the book. It's not, I feel like it could have been used as a really interesting plot component, but we don't really learn that much about it or the secret society itself. The motivations for the characters for why they even want to be in this society, I feel like aren't really clearly explained. Like, as a reader, having read this entire book, I don't even know what the appeal is of being in this secret society. Like, access to books, I guess. I guess. Okay, fine. That's fine. I have mixed feelings about this book. In case you could not tell, I have mixed feelings about it because, like I said, the plot is the kind of plot that I am into, but I feel like ultimately the execution of this book is what didn't work for me. The six characters that we follow, because each chapter, switches between a different character that we're supposed to follow, but I really didn't feel like there was a distinction in character voices, so I would forget who I was even supposed to be like reading about until their name would come up and I'd be like, oh yeah, it's a chapter for this character. So I didn't really feel like the characters were very, very differentiated. They all had the same attitude of like, I am the greatest in the world at this thing, except maybe one character where I feel like she was just kind of forgotten about. I don't know why, but she was, even when we did get a chapter of her, she was just kind of like in the background or like not really involved in doing anything. And so I don't know. There were times I forgot she existed because she wasn't really part of anything that was going on. She wasn't really significant to anything. Aside from her, who I was mostly indifferent to, mostly because I just kind of forgot about her, I really didn't like the characters in this book. I didn't find any of them likable. I didn't find any of them to have like redeeming qualities or things that I could like root for. And that's pretty unusual for me. I mean, I like difficult characters, so it's not even that I need characters to be likable or like good, but I just need to have something to root for, something that makes them interesting, something where I'm like, they might be a terrible person, but at the end of the day, I can still be like, I hope it works out for them, like that's what I need. And I just didn't feel like I got that in this book. I felt like these characters were, I don't know, just not really very good people and didn't really have anything that made me want to root for them or care about what was going on for them. There was a heavy focus in this book on the relationships between the characters, But even with that, I didn't feel like the relationships in the majority of the cases made sense, and I didn't feel like they were very well developed. And in one pairing in particular, like these two people, they went from like hating each other to soulmates within one scene, and it was very jarring. It didn't make sense to me. I didn't feel like the groundwork had been laid for that kind of like a switch. But it was just an example of one of the character groupings that character grouping, because it's a small group that we're focusing on, so like their dynamics are a huge aspect of what this book focuses on. And it just, I don't know, it didn't work for me. That part didn't work for me, unfortunately. Since this book basically takes place almost entirely in this like giant, I don't know if you'd call it a mansion. It's like the mysterious library is there, but it's also sort of a residence. It's dark academia moody. I love that kind of thing. But I mean, the characters were supposed to be like in classes as they're in the middle of sort of this magic development slash learning experience slash competition for these 5 open spots in the secret society. But we really didn't get that much with them actually like being in classes or learning anything. And I felt like it was a huge missed opportunity to not use the setting to its full potential in this. Maybe the subsequent books do. I don't know, but this first one really didn't, and I thought that it was a shame, because I was very interested to know more about the society and this library and the kinds of classes and like learning that they were doing. We just didn't get that much of it. To be honest though, probably the biggest thing that didn't work for me in this book was the author's writing itself. I found it to be very verbose. And I don't use that. I can't think of another book that I have described using that word, because I generally like when authors like get into the weeds, when they get descriptive. I typically like that. And as a person who is also verbose, like I am very self-aware. I over-explain things. I take the long way around when I'm getting to my point sometimes. Like, I am fully aware of this, and I'm typically pretty forgiving of authors who do that, because I don't mind like getting down into it, right? But this just felt like the entire time that I was reading this. So there's an episode of The Office where Kevin is trying to like limit the amount that he speaks. And so at one point he says, "Why say lot word when few word do trick?" And throughout this entire book, that's all I kept hearing in my mind was Kevin on The Office saying, "Why say lot word when few word do trick?" Because that's how I felt. It felt like we were saying so much to say nothing. Like, I would get to the end of a paragraph or a page, and this happened throughout the book, and I would be like, what was even the point of any of that? Like, it didn't really serve a purpose. It just felt rambly. Like, saying a lot but saying nothing. And like, look, I have worked in corporate America for almost 20 years. So like, I can respect the ability to like say a lot of things but saying nothing at all at the same time, right? Like, I do it. I respect the capability to like say a bunch of shit that doesn't actually mean anything. But that's what this whole book felt like. It just felt like saying a lot but saying nothing at all. I struggled with that. This entire book, because I felt like I was losing interest because there was so much dialogue and description in here that really didn't mean anything. It didn't do anything. It didn't seem to serve a purpose, and I just didn't know why it was in here. And part of that, and I'm gonna give you an example, because I wrote a note for which page was an example of like the writing in this book, because it's so hard for me to explain what I mean. Some of the way this book was written, I'm gonna read this example, okay? Because this is an example where I came across this and I was like, come on. Come on. So on page 137, I don't know if you can see, but page 137. Okay, on page 137, Ylif gave a loud cerulean groan. Cerulean is a color. It's a very beautiful shade of blue, but like, what does that mean? A loud cerulean groan? She gave a loud blue groan. What does that mean? That means nothing. That means nothing. And that was the kind of writing that permeated this book, and it took me out of the plot, the setting, getting invested, because all of the time I was like, why did we choose this? So unfortunately, the writing really didn't work for me here, and I have not read anything else by this author, so I don't know if her writing style in this was specifically chosen because she's trying to like build the environment in here of like all of these characters are the best in the world at what they do. They all know that they're like the best in the world at what they do. A lot of them are very self-absorbed because of that. And so a lot of, frankly, if it was a stylistic choice, like if the author wrote this style because she wanted it to go along kind of with the character attitudes about themselves, I could understand that, and honestly I think that would be like creative for her to have chosen that, but I've never read any other books by her, so I don't know if this is just her writing style or if it was a stylistic choice, but regardless, it really didn't work for me. Having said all of that, frankly, while I was intrigued by this, and I thought a lot of it was unique in what she was choosing to do. There's a lot of creativity in here, like merging things like science, you know, physics into the magic that the author was building in this world. I was very intrigued, and honestly I would be intrigued to, like, I'm intrigued to know what happens next, because this book ends on a complete cliffhanger. There is no resolution here and just more questions at the end, and this is a trilogy, so presumably she's going to build on that in the following books. But the how much I disliked the characters in this and how much the writing just didn't work for me, I am not going to be continuing this series. I might read a synopsis of the following books because I am interested to know how the author ends up like moving this story forward, like what comes next, if we learn more things about like the library, you know, the secret society. But I can't, if the following books are in a similar vein with the characters and the writing as this one, I can't do it. I just can't do it, unfortunately. And it sucks because I know people really love this book, and I wanted to really love this book, and there was a lot of components in here that I should have loved, but unfortunately it just didn't do it for me. So that is my thoughts and feelings on the Atlas 6. Overall, I made some really good progress in my Reddit bingo reading, and I always love doing this because it has me choosing books that like I wouldn't necessarily pick up, or if I did, I wouldn't necessarily be picking them up right now. It makes me think more about like be more mindful about some of the books that I'm reading and like branching out into different things. I definitely did that with a couple of books in this one, like The Five Broken Blades. Yes, I got that, but I continued reading it because, I mean, it was my bingo square for Romantasy, and I really, really wanted to I wanted to read a book where I could be like, I can check this square off. And honestly, you know, it's been a couple weeks now since I finished that one, and I look back and I'm like, you know what? I actually did have a fun time reading that. Like, again, not enough where I feel compelled to like buy the sequel, but I'm absolutely gonna read the sequels in that series. It ended up being kind of a palate cleanser when I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, I don't think it was taking itself too seriously, and when I just accepted I accepted it for what it is. I ended up having a great time. And the same thing as like the Harp of Kings. It wasn't, I don't think that that was a book that it was even really on my radar before I got this bingo square for the Bards square, and I'm really glad that I chose it because now I'm intrigued to read more by this author, but also to continue that trilogy. So that's why I enjoy doing Reddit fantasy bingo, because it makes me branch out and it's just fun. And it's also, you know what, I'm gonna put up the bingo square here, like next to my head now, so you can actually see. So this is where we're at after I finished my reading from this video, because I'm looking at my little square right now. So I finished the Romantasy square, Prologues and Epilogues, that was City of Stardust, Multi-Point of View, that was the Atlas 6, and Bards, which was the Harp of Kings. All of these books fit the hard mode option for their respective squares. The hard mode for the bingo squares that they do is just sort of like an extra criteria, where if you want something a little bit more of like a difficult reading prompt to find, then you can choose the hard mode option. And so all of the books though that I read, I believe, met the hard mode option. So the Romantasy hard mode was, the main character is LGBTQIA+, and that is true. 2 of the characters were. And the Prologues and Epilogues, the hard mode is that it would have to have both. City of Stardust had both a prologue and an epilogue. Multi-point of view, that one, the hard mode is that there's at least 5 point of view characters. That is correct, because in the Atlas 6 there were 7 point of view characters. And then the last one that we did, Bards, which was the Harp of Kings. The hard mode is the character is explicitly called Bard. That is correct. The 2 main characters were, well, one of the main characters was explicitly referred to as a bard, but the other main character like was also a musician who like played with the bard. So yeah, hard mode met on all of these. Actually, hard mode met on all of my bingo squares that I've completed so far. The squares that are marked off are the ones that I've completed so far, as you can see. So what do I have left? I have 6 bingo books left by the end of March. And I feel confident that I'm going to make it. My plans for the following squares, for reference materials, I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to put up the book covers as I say what I'm going to read for my following squares so you can see. So for the reference materials square, which the criteria for that is read a book that features additional material such as a map, footnotes, glossary, translation guide. Hard mode is a book that contains at least 2 types of additional materials. I already wanted to read this book, the London Seance Society, and because I get a lot of the ideas of what to read by going through the actual Reddit Fantasy Bingo posts, because a lot of people will post suggestions about books that will fit different squares. So this one, London Seance Society, was listed as one that will meet the hard mode for this square. So I'm going to read that. For Eldritch Creatures, which is probably pretty self-explanatory, but the prompt for that is read a book featuring a being that is uncanny, unearthly, and weird. This can be a god or monster from another plane or realm and is usually beyond mortal understanding. The hard mode is that the book is not related to the Cthulhu mythos. And so the one I'm going to read for this is John Dies at the End by Jason Pargin. From what I understand, this should meet hard mode. For the Author of Color square, the prompt for that is to read a book by an author of color. Hard mode is that it must be a debut novel published in the last 5 years. So the one that I'm going to read for this is Daughters of Izdihar by Hadir Elsbai. It should meet hard mode because it was just published a couple years ago. Space opera, once again, I think this one is probably pretty self-explanatory, but it's read a sci-fi book that features a large cast of characters and has a focus on social dynamics, which may be political or personal in nature, set primarily in space or on spaceships. So hard mode is to that it was written by an author of marginalized gender identity. So the one that I'm going to read is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Should meet hard mode. Then I've got the Criminal Square. The prompt for this is to read a book in which the main character is a criminal. This could be a thief, assassin, someone who commits mail fraud, etc. Hard mode is that it features a heist. The one that I'm gonna read for this, so previously I was gonna read The Book of Night by Holly Black for this, but like I couldn't get more than like a chapter or two into that because I just didn't like the writing, so I DNF'd that book. But I'm gonna try The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi instead, and that one should meet hard mode from what I understand. And then the last one, possibly the one that I'm looking forward to the most, is the Under the Surface prompt, and that is to read a book where an important setting is either underground or underwater. Hard mode, at least half the book takes place underground or underwater. For this one, I'm going to be reading Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman. I have had this paperback book for a long time, waiting to be read, and God, it's talked about like all the time online as such a fun series to get into. That is my plan for Under the Surface, finally giving me an excuse to read Dungeon Crawler Carl. Not too many books that I have left to read. I've been trying to like space them out throughout the years. That's really the best way to do it, because I mean it's like 25 books to read, which I don't know, for a lot of readers that's not that much, but it's like I don't know, it's probably like 40% of the books that I read in a year. You know, I'm not over here reading like 100 plus books. I wish that I could, but unfortunately my schedule just does not typically allow that kind of thing. Although we'll see. So far in the last like 6 weeks, because my work schedule has really gotten a lot more manageable, I have had a lot more time to just like take care of things in my personal life and like have some free time. So I might end up having more books that I read in 2025 than I did in 2024. But I set like a Goodreads reading goal for myself, but it's not really anything. I choose like 26 books because I'm not out here trying to like stress myself out with a book goal like that. I know a lot of people love a book goal because they find it motivating, right? To like read towards this number that they really want to accomplish. But for me, it's the number of books that I read isn't really what my goal is. My goal is to enjoy reading, try new things, like have a good time, just have a good time reading. That I just want to have a good time. And overall, most of my Reddit bingo has been a pretty good time. So the next time you're gonna see me in this series, I will be done with my Reddit bingo and I'll be talking about like the final books that I've read. So you'll see me then. That's all that I've got for you today. So let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about, and man, if you loved the Atlas 6 or Five Broken Blades or City of Stardust, please don't take offense to my feelings on them. We all feel different things about different books, and there's books that I love that other people think are just like the worst, and that's okay, because we all like different things. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on any of the books that I've read. Are you doing Reddit Fantasy Bingo, or would you be interested to do it when it starts again on April 1st? Like start with the new one. Or you know what? It's never too late either. If you're intrigued, I will see if I can link the the official post on the fantasy sub in the video here down below. So if you want to go check it out, check out the prompts, maybe get some ideas for some reading before bingo ends, it's always welcome. There's no prize, rather just like a sense of accomplishment if you get bingo. That's basically what the prize is. That's all that I've got for you today. I really appreciate you stopping by. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.